Hello, proppers. Welcome back to the shop. Some time ago, I made the Billy the Puppet mask from the movie Saw, but I never made a video of it. So today I'll be making the full puppet in miniature size on his signature tricycle. For the rear chassis, I'll be using a piece of 1/4-inch PVC board. All of the tubular pieces will be made with 1/8-inch copper tubing. I cut out the piece for the rear chassis with my bandsaw, as well as slices of 1.5 and 3/4-inch PVC pipe, which I'll use for the wheels. I bend a piece of the 1/8-inch copper tubing for the rear chassis brace, then drill holes through the rear chassis for a tight fit. Since this is a critical brace point for the tricycle, I use tube epoxy instead of hot glue to seal it in. For the rear axle, I use a small straight piece of 1/8-inch copper tubing. I carefully placed one end of the 1/8-inch copper tubing inside the center of the 3/4-inch PVC piping and fill the void with hot glue. After the glue is completely cooled and solidified, I repeat that process for the other wheel. With the rear axle completed, I start thinking of ways of housing it onto the tricycle where it'll continue to turn. I find this metal crimper in my bag of misfit toys and decide it's the perfect thing to use. I split the crimper in half to create a longer base of support for my rear axle. After spreading open the slots of the crimpers and sanding down the burrs, I slipped them onto the rear axle and used crazy glue to attach them to the rear chassis. Being ever so careful to make sure that I don't get crazy glue on any of the parts that will restrict the movement of the axle. I bend a piece of the 1/8-inch copper tubing to create the front fork as well as the housing for the front axle. All of the tubular pieces will be connected by soldering. I was having a bit of a problem building up enough heat with my cordless soldering iron, so I had to go back to the corded. I created the front wheel the same way I did the rear, by using a sliver of PVC piping and filling it with hot glue. But while soldering the fork, I melted the glue, so I had to change the wheel up for a solid piece of wood. But before doing that, I decided to forge ahead and create the handlebars. I cut a slit at the bottom of the handlebars with my Dremel tool to make a more secure connection to the neck. I then used another piece of the 1/8-inch tubing to create a center bar to attach the two halves together. Beforehand, I tinned both sections for an easier and quicker connection. As you can see here, I changed out the hot glue filled PVC wheel for a slice of wooden dowel. I cut out a seat from my 1/4-inch PVC board and then cushioned it with foam clay. I used a stiff piece of plastic for the front axle, then I used my torch to bend it into a form of a pedal. Small pieces of the same plastic were cut to widen a section of the pedal where Billy's foot would be. These pieces were attached with crazy glue. The crazy glue I was using was really bargain basement and taking a long time to dry. So on some occasions I used a little dab of hot glue to lock everything in position while the crazy glue dried. After spraying on a red oxide primer, I attached the front fender, which was made from a piece of the 1.5-inch PVC tubing. I used my heat gun to bend the tubing into the right curvature. After establishing the proper curvature, I marked out the exact position of the fender and attached it with epoxy putty. To give the putty a chance to dry properly, I first tacked the fender in with hot glue. I used the excess epoxy putty to create grips for the handlebars. Then I added the ridge detail to the rear chassis before moving on to the seat. The foam clay to the seats still hadn't set, so I'll have to get back to that later. Before attaching the seat, I pulled the ground wire from a piece of Romex and created some faux coils. I created these coils by wrapping the wire around the shank of a small paintbrush. I then used some of the epoxy putty to attach the coils to the base of the seat. I decided to move forward with making the miniature Billy the Puppet. For the main body of the structure, I'll be using 6mm EVA foam. I'll be doubling up on the 6mm EVA foam to add depth. The first section I'll be working on is the torso. For the torso, I'll be layering 2 rectangular pieces of EVA foam, and I'll sandwich the arms between the two. All of the EVA foam will be attached using contact cement. A small section of the arms that go between the torso pieces have to be thinned out. After attaching the arms, I heat up the body to shape it into the position that I desire. I fold and pin down the arms so that it'll stay in the desired position after it's cooled. After shaping and contouring the upper section of the body, I can get started on the legs. To ensure the proper sizing of the legs, I temporarily place the seat into position. The shoulders are trimmed around and a slot is cut out for the neck. Pieces of Romex are fished through the arms so that they'll be able to be bent into stable positions. A 1/4 inch of the wire is left extended outside the arms to securely attach the hands. Just like the torso, 2 pieces of foam are layered together to make the legs. Romex wire is also fished between the legs, leaving a 1/4 inch on both sides to attach it to the body as well as the feet. After marking out the position of the seat on the center post, I use my Dremel tool to cut a slot in the center post, and I attach the seat using epoxy putty. A screw was ran down the center rear of the seat to act as a seat post. I turned my attention back to Billy the puppet and created his feet out of EVA foam. I temporarily attached the feet onto the leg using the extended piece of Romex wiring. I won't lock this in with contact cement until after I get Billy dressed. I realize at this point in the build he's starting to look like Tall Man, but I'll make all the necessary adjustments a little later. After a bit of trimming and contouring, it's time to get Billy dressed. I'll be using some black felt for the main section of his tuxedo and attaching it with contact cement. Billy will not be able to change this wardrobe anytime soon. Before Billy gets his tuxedo jacket, I'll have to fashion him a shirt and collar. To create a dicky for him, I'll be using a thin piece of cardboard and I'll layer it with white material. For all you youngsters out there with dirty minds, this is what a dicky is. To make sure that the collar stands proud, I glue small pieces of cardboard underneath. After the white material is attached to the dicky, it's glued to the front torso. I use the same black felt material to create Billy's tuxedo top. Cutting slots in the material to stick his arms through to make it a little more lifelike. After trimming the material, I lock it down with a little bit of hot glue. The jacket is finished up by attaching the sleeves. The sleeves will also be attached with hot glue. With the bulk of the suit completed, I can attach the hands and feet. The hands are also created with small blocks of EVA foam. I use my cordless soldering iron to burn in the details of the hands. I created the head out of foam clay, which takes several days to dry properly. So I'll move forward with some of the painting. I started out by coloring the handlebars and the seat posts with the brightest silver I had, but I came back later and did that in chrome. The center of the wheels were painted white, then shadow lines were placed in to symbolize spokes. The seat was painted black to look like leather, and the outside of the wheels to look like rubber tires. I fashioned the bow tie the same way I did the collar, out of cardboard and pieces of white material, and then I painted it red. I also fashioned a breast pocket for the suit with a red kerchief. After hand painting the shoes red, I found that the form clay used to create the head was dry and ready for painting. Since the back of the head was flat, I utilized some hot glue to build it up. At this point, all that was left was to paint the face, put hair on the head, and then attach it to the body. Since the face was so small, I utilized a needle to apply the red spiral to the cheeks. I used the same technique for the rest of the facial details. The foam clay did settle on one side of the face and created a small depression. I'll figure out a way to fix that later. But in the future, I think I'll use epoxy putty instead of the foam clay. I applied a little light gray shadowing for contrast. After adding a little more detail to the shoes, I attached the head using hot glue. After completing quite a few projects, I found that it's much easier to paint over some dry glue instead of trying to pick it all off. Instead of applying strips of hair to the head itself, I decided to first create a wig. To do that, first I created a foam piece similar to the size and shape of the head and covered it with saran wrap. After layering strips of hair with hot glue onto the foam piece, I cut and trimmed the wig. After the glue dried, I just trimmed away the cellophane. The wig was glued to the head, and the head was attached to the body before the final hair trimming. I attached our little buddy to his tricycle, and that marks the end of this project. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, press that like button, and press that bell notification so you'll be notified when future videos are uploaded.